How's it, guys? In this next little short clip, I'm going to address the different law interpretations of the breakdown. And you'll notice that this obviously is going to become quite a vital part of our game this year, and specifically not having played last year when the law interpretations were brought in. And just some of those important aspects just to note here quickly is you'll see and that's what's important, is that they're not new laws. They just, the referees have been asked to place emphasis on their interpretation of these particular areas of the breakdown point. So just to do a little bit of a summary, you'll see the tackler, the ball carrier, the first arriving players and other arriving players. Those are the areas that the referee will be focusing on. And as coaches, we always look for trends in the game, or little tricks or things that we can do that can really push the boundaries when it comes to things like the breakdown. And some of these techniques and aspects that we have been using, we may not be able to apply them anymore because the referees have probably got a bit smarter. And I'm going to touch on some of those aspects as we go through this little video quickly. The first thing, guys, is with regards to the tackler. Something that we used to use and we actually used in the past is what I refer to as clamping on to the tackler. So when you've made the tackle, clamping onto the ball carrier, if you clamp on excessively and you really hold on hard around his hips or his legs, you force the ball carrier, or the ball carrier can't actually turn and use his core to be able to present the ball. So what that actually does is it slows down that breakdown point, and it allows you to have an opportunity to keep that player in that position and maybe to go for that jackal or that steal. That's something that the referee will specifically be looking out for, and they'll also be making sure that you roll out towards the touch lines, that you don't, what I refer to as bowl or bowling, where you actually rolled out towards the oncoming supporting players of the ball carrier. So you actually have to roll out towards the touch lines. So those are the things that they'll be looking for from a tackle perspective. If we move on to the actual ball carrier, right? Yeah, the ball carrier, what they'll be looking out for is presenting the ball in a single dynamic movement. Whereas before, a ball carrier used to do like a little double roll, or they would excessively present the ball and narrow the gate. So these are little things that the referee will obviously look out for as well. And I think what's important here, guys, just to bring to your attention, is something that we refer to as winning the fight on the ground and creating space on the ground. By presenting the ball, you're actually allowing space to be created on the ground. So you actually want to create space by having maximum distance between the defenders and the attacking team. So by getting a good ball placement in, you can actually increase that space on the ground. So we'll touch on a couple of those aspects as well. And just to show you guys a nice little example here, just to create a little bit of interest, is a nice solid ball carrier here by Reece Cambia when he was a little under 14 boy. And I'm sure he'll be featuring quite prominently this year in the 2021 season. So let's have a look at this clip quickly. And you can see how well he does here. He rolls over it, and we're able to win that ball back quite quickly there. All right. Something else, gents, that we've worked on is what I've called rolling the shoulder. This technique, you'll notice, I'm going to show you the little video as well. You will see that the player in white is the jackler. What he's done is he's actually locked on over the ball. And what the ref will do now is he'll blow immediately for the jackler if he's got his hands on the ball. What we used to do is we used to change this penalty from a penalty that would have been for us holding on to a penalty for them going off their feet. So there's a little technique that a team could use, and what was done is, with the technique, how we coached it, was you would roll your shoulder over, and with that rolling of your shoulder, you also kick your leg over. So you can have a look at this next little clip here as an example of this rolling the shoulder technique. Have a look quickly. So if you just have a look there again, there it would be a penalty awarded against the blue player on the ground for holding on. And if he drives his outside shoulder over and kicks the leg over, he's able to get the penalty. Right, so that rolling the shoulder technique most likely will be irrelevant going into this season, and the referee is obviously going to be blowing much quicker now. Once the jackal has got his hands on the ball, the ref will be blowing immediately, so you won't have the opportunity to actually roll him off your feet anymore. The double roll I touched on already as well, by creating that moving target. If you're going to present the ball in a narrow ball placement, or if you're rolling over the ball again, it just makes it harder for a jackler to be able to jackal or get his hands on a ball if you're moving on the ground. So the ref will obviously be watching out for that as well. We used to look at, obviously looking at getting born, the technique for recoiling with a swivel. And this technique again allowed us to narrow the gate and to create even more space on the ground between the defenders and the attackers. So you can just see in this example here how the technique worked was the player would get up off his elbow, he would use his boots or studs in the ground as leverage or to get grip, and then he would get up and place that ball in that long ball placement, like getting born, which is what we referred to just before. Have a look quickly.
Well done.
Okay, so you can see how he gets up, and that just creates that space on the ground, and it narrows the gate entry point for us as well. So that was rolling the shoulder, recoil with the swivel. The squeeze ball, interesting technique here, guys, because if you do fall over the ball in your ball carry, you can still create that space on the ground. So it's probably something that I would encourage us more of our players to do, is if you have to get in that situation where you have to take contact and go down to ground, if you can get your spine in line, drive it that head in towards the defender and really pump those legs. And if you do go down to ground, you can then place the ball, you know, under your body, and that will also prevent the jackler from being able to get that steal or his hands on the ball that quickly. So this little technique here, guys, we called it scorpion. And the reason why we called it scorpion is because of the leg that you kick out to get that momentum to get over the ball. And you can see how, again, little techniques like keeping your head off the ground, keeping your chest nice and low, keeping your head up for safety reasons, and all those aspects you can see are listed there as well. But you can have a look quickly at the video example. So you can have a look here again. You drive the shoulder over and kick the leg over as well. And through. Okay. And by keeping flat, you keep yourself safe. Right, and you can see there still, by getting into this position, if you have carried and fallen on top of the ball, you can then still create that space between a defender and your supporting players. Your supporting players would then be closer to the ball than what the defending player would be. And that's what we talk about with regards to winning the space on the ground. Okay, so that's the scorpion technique. Right, moving forward, if we look into the next area here, the stand-up tackle. Again, guys, I think this has become quite a popular technique that's been used by a lot of teams. I know that we, in the 2019 season, were able to execute it quite successfully. And again, yeah, what's important, I think, for us to all understand is when that maul is formed. If you, in this example, in this picture, if you have two players making the tackle, or like Liam and Motloweni joining this tackle situation, if it's three defenders and one attacker, there's no more. So you can see in this example, Liam comes in from the side and is able to actually steer and turn and get his body in a position where we're able to execute this buffalo tackle technique, which is what we're referring it to. So you can have a look in this example quickly what I'm talking about. Okay, so you can see there the maul's not formed, and you can see Liam is able to join in from the side. Okay, maybe a little bit too early there or too late, but you can see how well he does in driving his hips up and underneath the ball carrier, which prevents him from being able to fight down to the ground.
He's elbow down, getting to ground. Might have lost it. Yes, turn over again for the back.
Right, so that's with regards to stand-up tackle. What the referee will be specifically looking for is that there's no side entry. That if we understand the concept of when the maul officially is formed, then we can still execute that. Right, then we're going to have a look at the jackler. Okay, guys, what is important here is what you would have noticed already in the Currie Cup is the referee's blowing like immediately. As soon as that player has won that shoulder battle and he's got his hands on the ball, the ref isn't waiting, and there's no longer waiting or surviving the clear out anymore for that jackler. Okay, it's going to make it safer for the jackler as well, and it could encourage, us to jackal a bit more. And you'll see that again, if you've watched some of the Currie Cup recently, the ref is very quick on blowing. He's not waiting or delaying for the ruck to form and other things to happen. Okay, so that's with regards to Jackler. And also what's important here is that the Jackler must get his hands under the ball. A lot of players tend to get their hands on top of the ball, and they don't get their hands physically under the ball, because then you actually can't get the ball out. And there's a technique that you'll see that we can maybe touch on a later video or post, is on which we refer to as the digging technique, which is something that you guys can work on to improve getting your hands under the ball and getting that fight out, or the ball, fighting that ball out that's on the ground. A ruck approach is something interesting as well. You'll notice in this little video here, you'll see Damon Royal executes this phenomenally. You can see already he's approaching this ruck at a slight angle. Okay, and usually the idea is to approach it at a 45-degree angle. You can see how well he beats the ruck and how he gets into that low body position and is able to execute the steal. So let's have a look at this video example. You can see there his approach from the side and is able to get his hand straight onto that ball. And he wins the shoulder battle by being able to use that technique. Right, and does really, really well there. Things like the tripod technique that Richie McCaw was famous for, having one hand on the ground and other hand gripping the ball. The referees are going to obviously insist that players stay on their feet at the breakdown point, so that there'll be an area of concern and maybe a technique that we can no longer work on anymore. Okay, other arriving players. Again, what's important here is that you arrive at the ruck behind the last man's feet and you don't enter from the sides. So the referee will obviously be emphasizing that as well. Some of the trends, guys, just to summarize what the law interpretations will have and what impact they'll have, in our season. Little things like, I think there'll be a lot of penalties at the breakdown. I think a lot of teams might be excessively trying to steal the ball, and that could result in a few breakdown penalties. That again, guys, will create an emphasis on having a good kicker, right? Kicking for poles or kicking for touch, because you'll see that there'll probably be a need for more successful line-out, or the execution of a successful line-out, where a lot of the source of tries will be, from the line-out. And you'll see that it also makes sense maybe not to attack the breakdown in the early stages of the game in particular, because the referee is obviously going to be like really eager to take control of the game, and he's going to go absolutely crazy at those ruck points and making very quick decisions, which he needs to be making. I think we can expect a rugby league style of defense, where you'll be less numbers that are defensively being sent into the ruck or the breakdown point. So you'll end up against defenses of 13 or 14 player defensive lines, up in front of you, which will make our attack a lot more difficult. So guys, I'm hoping that these few aspects are of interest to all of you, and that they can all help us, with knowing what the referees will be looking out for. And I hope you guys enjoyed it.